Yeah, I mean, never in a million years thought we would get Tony Todd. Ever, 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 ever. Oh, it's amazing. This is like a dream come true. I never thought in a million years that like we get to like do an interview at like San Diego Comic-Con. That's pretty insane. So we're like so honored. Thank you so much. This is amazing. Me and my brother would watch horror movies late at night, and you know we were 90s kids, and so when we grew up we got to see all of these really incredible films in the 90s that me and my brother called hood horror movies. And they were just these movies that took place in black neighborhoods, and there was a level of like fun and comedy, but like great horror and thriller and camp to them. And like you got to see, or at least look into a world that where I was growing up you didn't really get a chance to see into, you know. And so like, or at least get to see like exposed or out in what we would consider to be like mainstream films, right? And so like I remember the first time I had saw People Under the Stairs, I was just like blown away, and like I couldn't believe that a movie like that existed, where you see this like little black kid who looks like me running around this like house and like trying to get away from these people. And I was like, oh my God, it was amazing. And you know, it was funny, and like Ving Rhames was cracking jokes and having you know, it was just really, really great. Then you move on to like Tales from the Hood, and like infusing like comedy into horror, and like all of these really great stories. And it was like a black Tales from the Crypt, you know, and right. I fell in love with it. And then all the way, you know, there's a ton of movies, Leprechaun in the Hood, and a ton of movies like that come, and then you get all the way to like 2001, and Snoop Dogg is Bones. And so
yeah, I remember Bones.
Those movies like went away, and we hadn't really seen anything like that in a long time. And so it really had hit me and my writing partner John, and I was coming up with this idea that what if we tried to recreate a 90s hood horror film, but like today, with the same level of camp and like fun and comedy and over the top, and really just kind of hit the epitome of that genre in this moment. And so it also came across our minds that we had never, ever, ever seen a black serial killer wear a mask. Ever. And there was like Candyman, there was Bones, there was all these people that I just listed, but it was always their faces were shown, but there was never a Jason, a Michael Myers, or a Scream, or a Jigsaw that took place in a black community or was a person of color. So we really wanted to create that. So that was like the genesis of why we decided to go with Bitch Ass.
Bitch Ass is about a kid I was picked on in high school, you know. He got beat up by a group of kids as an initiation into a gang, and 20 years later he comes back for vengeance. You know, characters like this, or characters that have gone through like difficulties, are born when bad things are done to them. You know, incredible ones. So. You know, we're very excited to share this with the public, with the audience.
The first reason for the mask was we wanted this person to have been, we wanted it to be a revenge because of the fact that they were left for dead. And so their face was mangled and all messed up, and how to cover that up. It was just for the character's reason, that's what that was. But the other reason is we really wanted to play around with this idea of like this like Phantom of the Opera like kind of storytelling, where you have this like underneath this like terrifying mask, you have this gentle soul. So the mask is the initial thing that you meet with this character. Right. And as you'll see in the film, like one of the things that the storytelling that this movie specifically does is it allows you to learn about the character as you go along with them. When you first meet Bitch Ass, you don't know if he's good or bad. You actually have no idea. And so the mask helps give you this initial already terrifying, like spot on judgment of this person, and in the hopes to, for lack of a better term, pun intended, you get to take off his mask throughout the movie.
I've known about Bill. I mean, not only is a talented writer and director, but he's an amazing stand-up comic as well. So our initial inception was I actually met Bill through one of the producers, Shane Brown, my best friend for 15 years. I went to one of his stand-up comics in LA, and I was like, man, this guy is so talented. I was like, he has a vision, and I would love to work with him one of these days. And sure enough, the opportunity presented itself, and I read the script, and I was just blown away. You know, I felt like I could identify with the character. You know, being from someone from another country, you know, coming into America and, you know, going through some of the bullying and some of the stuff that I read in the script, I could identify with. So I read the script, it just took me on this incredible roller coaster. I was like, I'm freaking on, man. I want to work with Bill. Let's do it. When do we start? And yeah, I could, like I said, you know, and it's every single person can identify with a character like Beach Ass, you know. You know, we live in a world nowadays where, you know, kids are picked on and eventually they end up doing something to hurt somebody else. Or you talk about all these mass shootings in society today. Most of this reason were like kids that were like picked on in high school or like things like that, and they end up doing stuff like that. So this is a real world consequence that has happened. People can relate to it. So yeah, I mean, like I was like, yeah, let's do it. Let's do it.
Yeah, I mean, never in a million years thought we would get Tony Todd. Ever, 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 ever.
Let the story begin.
We were looking for somebody to be like the Vincent Price, right? Like this, like crypt keeper introing this movie. My first thing was like, oh well, you know, let's just see who we could have. Like, who does anybody know? Can we call somebody? Like, all this stuff, blah, blah, blah. And, like, and we were like, because there's no way we're going to get somebody like Tony Todd. And then it got to a place where we were like, what if we just sent him an email? Like, what if we just asked? And we got in touch with his manager, and he was like, look, Tony's very picky. He doesn't just do anything. And he's super old school. There's, like, no other way to put it. Like, he's super old school. He's like, you can write him a letter. And send him, and I'll send him your trailer. We had like cut a trailer, so the movie was already done, and we knew that we wanted this host at the beginning, but we just didn't know who it was going to be. And so send him a letter, and like I'm like, okay, that's the last I'm going to hear about this. And I was working on another project in Arkansas, in the middle of nowhere, and I get this like email that's like, hey, Tony's going to call you tomorrow at noon, and you're like, what? Like, okay, oh shit. And I go to my boss, and I'm like, hey, I can't be here at noon. And he's like, no, what do you mean you can't leave work? I'm like, look, I don't fire me. I don't care what happens. Like, I cannot be here. Somebody has to cover me at noon. And I'm just in a field in Arkansas, freaking out, pacing. And then boom, Tony Todd just answers I answer the phone and go, hello. And he just goes, hello, Mr. Posley, with the voice and chills. I mean, I got him now, like going up my spine. I got him. And I just couldn't believe it. And I just like told him how much of a hero he was to me, and like to seriously see a black serial killer in the horror genre, and for somebody to be so iconic. I mean, to this day, I won't say Candyman 3 times in the mirror. I won't do it, dude. And like that's amazing that he had that, and he said that he wanted to support young black filmmakers, and he also wanted to know why there wasn't a serial killer of color that wore a mask. And I told him about the concept. He saw the trailer, thanks to how incredible he carried this character from inception all the way to the finish line. And Tony Todd said that he wanted to be a part of this. And so that really took it to a next level, because that is the black horror icon passing the torch to a new character.
I mean, for me, it's just a dream come true. I mean, like, when I heard Mr. Todd was, like, attached to this, I was like, oh, my God. Like, I was pinching myself. Like, I mean, how lucky are we to have such an iconic figure in this genre, you know, like, helping us out? He could have easily said no, but, like, to have such a good heart and, you know, knowing that it's passing it forward and passing the touch to me, how lucky am I to be in this position? And it's like, it's just incredible. And I mean, this is a passion project for each and every one of us. You know, Bill Posley, my guy, you know, Shane Brown, you know, Don Kalam, John, And every single person, every single cast members that worked tirelessly on this film, thank you very much. And I mean, I'm just having a blast, man. You know, I'm just incredibly lucky and grateful, and I don't take it for granted to be in this position, to be sort of like the next generation of like Candyman. It's like incredible.
I've made so many like shorts and things and stuff, and you're always like, you always like submit it to festivals or whatever, and then when you don't get in, you're like, man, I'm better than this festival. I don't even know why they didn't choose my project, man. Man, all the stuff they got there is whack. And then like finally we like got into something, and you're like, wait, are they crazy? Are you sure they shouldn't have chose that? Wait, are you sure they saw the movie I made? Like, wait, what's happening? Everybody did. We all worked super hard. Everybody put blood, sweat, and tears. I mean, you have these people doing stuff for you for free. You have people doing stuff for cut rates, and you're telling them, guys, just trust me. Like, this is good. This is something different. This is special. And I'm sure I've heard it a million times on projects that I've worked on for other people or, have been a part of and stuff like that. And very rarely do you actually get to, cash the check that your ass writes, And so like it was so much more about the people. It was so much less about what I had accomplished and more about letting other people know that thank you so much for believing in me. I never once in a million years was like, oh my God, I got into South by Southwest. It was never that. It was always like, guys, look what we did, man. Like, we did this, and like we got there because it was hell. Hell, if you've ever made a movie, you know exactly what I'm talking about, man. If you ever made a movie in COVID, you know what I'm talking about, and like just everything went wrong throughout the entire process, but we all put our heads together and figured out a way to do it. So, I mean, words can't express, what it was. And like, for me, it was extra special because it happened to be two anniversaries, right? So we premiered the night that we started filming a year later, like on the day we premiered at South by. And our last premiere, our last film, was also on the day my mom passed away a year later. So my mom passed away in the middle of filming this movie. And it was after the like first week. It was like it was a Friday. We were in the middle of shooting. I get a phone call, and my brother's like, hey, mom died. And I'm like, what? And they're like, Bill, where do you want this light? And I'm like, over there. Hold on. And so like, we just had to keep pushing, and I couldn't tell anybody, and we got it done. And then like a year later, for Bitch Ass to close on that same night was just like more than words can even express. It was like so cool. So it was magic. It really, really was magical.
Right. I mean, just everything is just coming full circle. Like I said, I felt like it was magic as well, and just the reception was incredible. And it's like I said, it's like, finally getting the validation of years of hard work and dedication. So, and it feels good. You
got to keep the ship moving, when you're doing something like that. And like, I couldn't stop. I couldn't stop and be like, hey, everybody, my mom passed away. And then everybody be like, oh, Bill, we had to like finish, we just had to like finish, and it was more of that. So you just have to like tuck it back, and then you just got to get it done. And so, yeah, it was a hard choice to make at the time, but I think my mom would have wanted me to keep going, so that was a big part of it too. I think it's such a fun film. It's a popcorn movie. It's something that you're allowed to laugh and cheer and clap and just like have fun watching. So yeah, please check it out.